I'm going to be sharing with you 3 of the books that have given me a lot of actionable advice and have really helped me in a profound and significant way in the past couple years in my own life. So the first book I want to recommend to you is Discipline Strategy by Dr. Tim Coomer. Now, what Tim does is he uses the word discipline, not necessarily in the sense that we're used to, which is grit and just working hard and really getting stuff done, but rather he breaks it down into an acronym, a 10-letter acronym, which is decide, investigate, sort, conceive, implement, persevere, loop, intensify, notice, and enjoy. So each letter has its own chapter in the book, and each letter is essentially a step in the planning and the achievement process. And you can use it to model a plan around any goal that you may have, whether it's starting a new business or building a go-kart in your backyard. It doesn't really matter how big or how small your goal is. This will help you set that plan in a way that is systemized and structured so that it's easier to do that. I'm very chaotic, I'm all over the place, I'm a scatterbrain, and I find myself always getting stuck in the gathering stage, or as Tim would call it, the investigation stage, which is just getting all the information in, researching a ton of different topics, looking for new things. And that's mostly due to the type of personality that I have, which is someone who is always seeking something new, looking for novelty, looking for the next best thing, what's next. And in that process, I'm only researching and gathering information, but never actually executing. So by having steps that I can follow, I can decide when I've got enough information and when I can move on to the next step and then process further into achieving that goal, rather than always being stuck in this one phase that never actually gets anything done. It's helped me a lot because I've looked at other people who are good planners, and I've always wondered how they do that. How can you just create a plan, and how can you conceive something that is just so perfect and then follow through with it? Well, this is exactly what this book does. It shows you exactly how to do that. And it also includes a free online advanced personality assessment. So one of the things in common between Tim and I is that we're both very interested in psychology and personality and what makes your brain tick and what makes you who you are and how that affects your decisions, how that affects how you act and how you just go through life. So by taking a personality test or a personality assessment, you may have done this in the past, it'll give you a lot of insight into who you are as a person, as well as highlight your strengths and your weaknesses, so that you know exactly who you are and what you're doing. At the end of each chapter, he also gives you worksheets on his website that you can complete as you process through each step in Discipline Strategy. So I really like that there's actionable advice in this book. That is a very big thing for me. I like reading books that give me real world examples and actionable steps that I can take to achieve better and do more. I don't really like the idea of being very vague and not really knowing what to do. So if you're that type of person, then this book is really for you. One of the things that really stuck out to me in this book is chapter 9, which is the N chapter, or notice. And what it means is that we have to notice the goals that we've already achieved and things that we've already accomplished. We don't spend enough time appreciating what we've been able to do in the past. I mean, we have no trouble at all dwelling on failures and stuff that we haven't been able to do, like, oh damn, I can't do this, I can't do that, I failed this, I failed that. And that might play over and over in your mind, the same way that negative memories stick in your mind. We don't spend enough time on the positives. So even just getting out of bed in the morning, if you've gotten to this point in your life where you're sitting watching this video, you're still alive, you've made it this far, you've done a few things right. Even if they're small, even if you haven't achieved much, you've made it this far. So take some time to appreciate what you've done and what you've achieved so far, because you've definitely had more achievements than you have failures if you're this far. If you've had more failures than successes, then you won't be watching this video. You'd be in the grave. You wouldn't be here. And Tim mentions fighting the tendency towards normalization. And that is something that I've noticed in my own life. You don't really appreciate the things that you do, even if they are very big or very small. You don't really appreciate it. For example, you could graduate high school and you'd be like, great, this is the best achievement so far. Then when you graduate college, you're like, oh, high school was easy, college was really tough. Then when you start your first business, you're like, oh, the real world's so tough, college was nothing. Then when you become a billionaire, you're like, forget all of that, it doesn't matter. Then you buy a new Lamborghini, it doesn't matter, it's just another Lamborghini. Appreciate those successes, because at some point in your life, that achievement was a huge thing. It may seem like nothing now, but remember, go back and appreciate all those little achievements that you've managed to make in your life, and it'll make it easier to achieve more in the future. And the second book I want to recommend is Principles by Ray Dalio. Now, Ray is the founder of Bridgewater Associates, which is essentially one of the biggest hedge funds and investment firms in the entire world. He mentions in the book that he grew it from his 2-bedroom apartment. He started with a partner and he grew it so big that he's now managing billions of dollars. He's worth billions, and he's got very interesting ideas and takes on life in this book. This book is broken into 3 parts. The first part is where I'm coming from, which is essentially his backstory and how he started his company, how he grew it, all of his failures and the struggles and trials and tribulations that he's gone through to get to the point where he is right now. He mentions in the book that you can skip that part if you just want to get right to the nitty-gritty and get to the principles and get to the things that you need to achieve. But I found it very interesting reading about him and his life and what it's taken to get to the point that he has right now. And I think it gives a lot more grounding and a lot more weight to the principles that he outlines later on in the book. So I recommend reading his backstory and reading about him, even if you don't really understand much of it, because it does have a lot of investment and financial lingo, but you don't really have to understand it all in order to understand the entire story as a whole. Then the second part is life principles, and these are principles that you can use in your actual life, no matter what business or work you're in. Maybe you're not working. If you're still in college, then you can read that. And the third part is work principles. And these are principles that you can use specifically in the work environment and starting a business if you're an entrepreneur or anything like that. But I found that all of these principles are sort of interchangeable no matter which part of life you're in. So some of the work principles, for example, can be translated to, let's say, your social circle. Let's say you have a group of friends, that's the same as a group of colleagues at work. If you're talking about hiring and firing employees, that can also be applied to hiring and firing friends. People that just aren't good for you, people that aren't great for you, finding people who will improve your life. They can all just be adapted and moved around. So I recommend reading this book cover to cover and then using it as a reference book. If you encounter a situation that you need, you can go back to these principles. Now, the first time I read this book was the first time that I'd seen someone explain exactly how our minds work and how the learning process works. Ray describes this as another one of those, or another one of those situations that you encounter, or another one of these experiences that you have. Everything in life follows patterns, and you encounter the same things over and over and over again, and you learn from them. So let's say you're 5 years old and you've never played basketball in your entire life, and your dad decides, let's go outside and I'll teach you how to throw a ball and catch a ball and whatever. Now you're 5, maybe you've never even seen a ball before. You go outside and you stand and you wait and you're like, Dad, throw! And your dad throws the ball and it hits you between the eyes, and you start crying and you fall on your face. And maybe your dad laughs at you, you get back up, you're still crying, he comforts you, he throws the ball at you again. This time, do you stand there and wait for it to smack you in the face? No, you put up your hands, you move your head, you dodge it, you do something different, right? Because you've encountered that experience before, you've encountered that situation. And if you don't learn from it, then that's something that you need to address, because something is going wrong that you're not learning from these experiences. And that's what Ray helps you with. These principles are essentially principles that have been derived from specific situations and specific interactions in his life, and how he can use them to then apply to the next time something bad happens or the next time something good happens. And by being conscious of the way that we learn and the way that we adapt over time, we can then refine and improve on those principles. Now again, let's say you're 5 years old, the next time your dad throws that ball, you dodge it, you don't catch the ball, and it goes to the opposite team. You can then do that time and time again and learn from that process. Next time, catch the ball. Next time, dribble the ball. Next time, run with the ball. Every time you encounter that situation, you gain a new tool in your tool belt that you can use and get better and get better and get better every single time you encounter those situations. And over your lifetime, you'll probably build up your own principles, but you just haven't been consciously aware of those principles that you've been building up. Maybe you've been cheated on in a relationship. You'll know to not go back to that person. Or maybe you will, and then something will change again, and you have to learn from that, and you have to use those experiences to then build better relationships, achieve better goals, and just do things better. One of the topics in this book is radical transparency and radical open-mindedness. And I'm a very big believer in this as well, as bringing all of your weaknesses to the surface, bringing everything to the surface, not leaving anything unseen, and not beating around the bush. This helps us improve and be completely conscious of what we want to do and what we want to achieve without it taking a personal impact on our lives. If I'm bad at something, I admit I'm bad at it, which means that I can then work on it and improve. No one's good at everything right from the get-go. Everything in life is learned and built upon from the day that you're born. So once you're aware of that and you stop taking it personally, it's going to improve your life dramatically. So I highly recommend this book. It is quite a thick book, but like I said, you don't have to run through it. You can read through it over a long period of time and then use it as a reference book. It's the reference guide to decision making and life. And the third and final book I want to recommend is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Tiny changes, remarkable results. results, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break the bad ones. I think over time in our lives, we've developed a negative connotation to the word habits because usually you're trying to break bad habits. You want to stop eating junk food? That's a bad habit. You want to stop smoking cigarettes? That's a bad habit. These are all bad habits that we're trying to break. Whereas this book makes it very apparent that there are a ton of good habits that we do naturally and ones that we can implement to improve our lives. Atomic meaning very small and habits meaning a regular occurrence. So many small regular occurrences of good things in your life will lead to something great. One of the reasons I've started reading so much more is actually thanks to this book. So it's funny how it took a book to get me to read more books. Always just try something. He mentions in this book the 2-minute rule, which is just spending 2 minutes doing something and eventually you'll start doing it more and more and more. James gives extremely practical advice to building better habits, which essentially leads to achieving your goals. And the way that we set goals, you're probably setting goals, like I said, because it's the beginning of the new year, is essentially wrong. It's flawed because achievement has very little to do with the goal. It has a lot more to do with the process. And those processes can be rooted in your identity. For example, I was a very fat kid and I had tried everything to lose the weight, from eating less to buying those useless products that you see on late night TV, on the infomercials that'll vibrate your abs or electrocute your muscles to make you lose weight and get in better shape. But none of that worked. Why? Because I didn't identify with that type of person. I didn't identify with someone who was fit and worked hard. I identified with being lazy. And this was rooted in my identity thanks to school. I didn't really have to work very hard at school. I didn't take notes. I didn't study very hard. I never did my homework, but I still managed to get good grades. So this led me to believe and give me this false confidence that being lazy is fine because I'm still able to achieve the same goals as everybody else. Why should I work hard if I can work less and get the same results and still do well? Except that's not true, and it doesn't translate to every aspect in life. If you want to lose weight, it actually takes hard work and it takes dedication and it takes getting up and going to the gym every day and it takes eating healthy. So I didn't identify with the type of person who did all of those things. I identified with the lazy couch potato kid that played video games all day and somehow still got good grades. It wasn't until I reached high school and I started looking at athletes and seeing how much attention they got and how they were praised and how determination and hard work is looked up to. And then I realized I want to be someone who is looked up to. I want to work harder. I want to be known as someone who works hard, who is dedicated, who gets stuff done. And by shifting that mindset, I was able to start going to the gym and lose all of the weight and become an athlete. Now my identity has shifted completely to someone who is an athlete, someone who is healthy, who eats healthy, who works out, who does all these things to be in good physical shape. It's almost impossible for me to gain that weight back now because I don't identify with that person at all. The fat me no longer exists, whereas my new normal is being fit and healthy. So now if I don't go to the gym or if I eat something unhealthy, I actually feel guilt and I feel bad, and it helps me stick to that habit. If you remove the need to use willpower to execute everything, it'll make it infinitely easier. Willpower is a finite resource. So if you use a little bit of it to not reach for that piece of cake, to not smoke that cigarette, to not open up Instagram, to get out of bed and get into your car and go to the post office and buy your groceries and do all the boring chores that you need to get done in the day, by the end of it, you're gonna have no willpower left and you're not gonna be able to do anything. But if you change your identity to someone who is productive and gets stuff done and goes out there and is on the ball and is always on top of things, and people will start looking up to you because of that, because like, damn, he's always getting stuff done, he's always achieving it, how is that even possible? That'll motivate you and it'll make those tasks effortless. You'll just be someone who gets stuff done. You'll just be someone who's productive. That will be you. That will be part of your identity. And by not doing stuff, you will feel guilt. You'll feel useless. You'll feel like someone who you aren't because you're no longer someone who isn't productive. You're someone who gets stuff done. So I highly recommend this book if you want to get stuff done. And it doesn't take a big step at all. It all starts with a little minute step to becoming better and doing things better. So those are the 3 books that I recommend, and I recommend reading them in the order that I suggested them because together, by the end of it, they are very useful as an overall approach to becoming a better person and achieving more. But if you don't want to read them all, or if you've read some of them in the past, just read the others and let me know what you think. And if you have suggestions of other books that are similar or that have helped you personally, I'd love to hear them. Please mention it down in the comments below, chat amongst one another, because it's always interesting hearing other people's perspectives and how they found the books. Or maybe you read these books and you have a completely different perspective to me. I'd love to hear that as well. So please do let me know. If you guys liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And I hope you guys achieve all of the goals that you want to achieve this year. As always, I shall see you in the next video. Cheers.